All right. Old passenger cars. Old grates. Old broken things from sad RGS times. We're here at the Colorado Railroad Museum today, and we're gonna start making things happen here shortly. Gonna go in the shop and see what's going on. Let's go check it out. Hang on. First things first, really helps if you look the part. There's a lot of hair inside this hat. Why do you think they make them so tall? Welcome to the next installment of the Steam 101 course. And this time we're going to look at how you fire up a steam locomotive from absolutely bone cold, that hasn't seen a fire and has had enough time to cool down completely, and bring it all the way up to operating temperature. Today's subject is Denver Rio Grande Western number 491, the Colorado Railroad Museum. Special thanks to the Colorado Railroad Museum for letting me come film everything while I was out volunteering this past trip. Make sure you guys check out their channel. They've got all sorts of cool goodies and great history about the locomotives that they share pretty frequently, so make sure you check their channel out and give them a subscribe. Really helps them out too. How you doing, big girl? So the first thing you need to do typically when you come to a locomotive and you need to fire it back up is usually you still have the old fire in there that you got to get rid of. So we talked about it a little bit in the first Steam 101 class. If you haven't seen, make sure you check that out here. It gives a really good overview of a bunch of different levels of understanding of different parts of steam locomotives. But I talked about how the grates are set up specifically in the 491 in that video. And the short version is that there's 4 primary sections that can actually dump and allow dead fire to drop out into the ashpan. And so first things first, you gotta shake the grates out and get all the fire out. And this sucks. There's gonna be a lot of, you're gonna hear a fair amount of heavy breathing out of me because I wasn't used to the altitude anymore because I live in Seattle these days. And because it's a lot of work. Over time, with the excessive heat of the firebox, the grates warp, the linkage warps, the pins warp. It's just kind of the name of the game with how they are, and things get out of adjustment, and the grates can really become a chore to shake, and they're a total pain to set up and get set right. I recall a very not fond few weeks spent in the firebox, bent over with an angle grinder, getting the grates to fit nice and easy, and 8 years ago when I did that, they worked great, but we're 8 years into the service life of this thing, and yeah, the grates could use a little attention. So I definitely had to suffer through it getting this going. But that's really the first part, is getting the old fire dumped out. Those don't want to do terribly much more. Me too. Okay. Now you can see the 4 quadrants all dumped variously differently. Plenty more to still scoop out, so shovel and a rake, here we go. And because, of course, it's never that easy, the fire doesn't just dump. A lot of times you'll end up having ash or bits of coal or something that'll get stuck and it won't want to come out, so you typically have to go in with a shovel in the back and scoop the bits out, or you get one of the 2 fire rakes and you go and use those and rake the bits out of the front or any of the pieces in the middle that get stuck. 491 has 2 different rakes, one that's really long and lives on the tender, and one that's a bit shorter, a bit more stout, that lives on top of the tender, easy access on the engine. Let's grab the rake. front's got a pile that won't dump. So we gotta rake it back with the rake. That's a little interesting because it's about the length of the box. $491 is kind of like your cat when you go on vacation. You know, at first, really happy to see that you're back, but then gets really mad at you for leaving all over again. And she was messing with me all week. And on this day, during this recording, she ate the rake. I pushed the big long one all the way in to get something off the front, and it got stuck behind the grate, and I couldn't move it. And I fought for like 20-25 minutes to get it out. And we'll just skip over that because that was just pain. Oh boy. Well, that's a first. Might have to go in there after that one. Use the second rake as a pivot. Works smarter than hard. Alright, we can see it's mostly clean in there now. We'll push the last of the junk right in front of the door. Ahead, dump that, level the grates. We're done with the rake, I think, though. So there's the front left leveled. Now we do the rest. Looking pretty good. See up there, isn't it? Okay, now let's see about the last set. Okay, and well, there's no perfectly level or perfectly clean fire, but that'll do. She ate the rake on me.
Oh, did she?
Yeah, the one on the tender, the big one.
Oh.
I had to rescue it, and that was a chore. 491 messing with me continuously. That's just what she does. So once you've got the old fire cleaned out and the grates are leveled, you're almost ready to go. But almost more important than the next step of actually starting the fire is do a good visual inspection of the firebox. You want to make sure that everything is happy, nothing has started to leak, nothing looks odd, nothing's out of place. You want to make sure everything is ready to go because your firebox is where all your heat concentration is. If you notice a crack that had happened or a leaking bolt or something, that's stuff that you need to note, and you may not be able to fire up the engine. So before you put the fire in, you always check the whole firebox. Let's do our visual firebox inspection now. Make sure nothing looks like it's been leaking or broken. nothing on the door sheet where we normally can't see. Inspect all the firebox here. And we'll stick a fire in it. And now for the fun part. Rag plus accelerant. Doesn't mean go fast, it means burn fast. Yeah, pretty much. Is this when I start singing Boston? It begins into the box with you, followed by copious amounts of kindling. In this case, very long kindling. Just like making a campfire. And so it begins. Let that catch for a minute.
Bigger wood, I guess.
Well, I'll get that going. Bigger wood will be good in a minute. I need to get the circulator going next. All right. There we go. You know how to read the direction on a pump, right? Do you know how to read direction on a pump?
Never with this one.
So this guy down here, this is our circulator pump, and there's a handy arrow for you, but it is a centrifugal pump. So the inlet is right in the middle because it's doing a spinning like a fan and throwing it off the outside. So your outlet's over here. So that's how you read it.
Inlet.
Yep. Outlet is on the flingy outy side, and the inlet is on in the center. And that's pretty common for most water pumps.
Yeah, I've had a couple that are just straight and directly through.
Yeah, that's also a possibility, of course. There's a bazillion styles, but...
We had those on sprayer.
Oh, gotcha.
I want to get out there, I'll hand it to you.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I've never used the circulator pump on this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a requirement by any means, but it is beneficial, and it helps keep the temperature smooth all the way across. And all three engines are set up for it, but obviously we only have the one, so. Until you get steam. So, one mechanical fact of pumps, I guess it's a thermodynamic fact of pumps, is that they can't pump two-phase flow, which means if you have water and steam, or water and a gas, or liquid and gas form, the pump cavitates rather than pump. So it loses the ability to pump once you have steam. But we usually run it till you see some steam on the gauge or until you've closed the monkey tail for long enough, because if you have steam up here, the steam's up here, you may not have that temperature gradient all the way across. You probably still have water at the bottom, so it still can be helpful. But also that. Well, that'd do it too. So on 491, she's got this little hose valve here, and then we also have to open the blowdown. I think all the engines are plumbed off the blowdowns for the intake. But the delivery is usually into the injector line in one way or another. Well, in the old days, they planned on replacing fireboxes and didn't care about longevity near as much. Yeah, just take it slow, or if they had to take it fast, know that they're gonna have to replace something. Anyway, time to pitch some more wood. All right. Oh yeah, we got a cute little campfire going now. The wood's caught, just drafting out the stack. It's a good day. $4.91 for having a cyclone does draft out the stack pretty good, which is cool. Just down the middle for now because we got long kindling, and we'll try and kind of move the fire forward shortly here. But we're gonna let it catch for a little bit. So things are progressing along quite nicely. We've got those long pieces of kindling have burned the fire forward, so the smoke's going straight out past the arch brick rather than rolling out the back. That is rolling out the back still a little bit because you got a bunch of resistance in the front with the cyclone front end that's in this locomotive. So we're gonna try and toss the wood a little bit further ahead and keep the fire burning about the middle of the firebox, and it'll warm us up nice and toasty. So let's go for it. And then this is just like flammable bowling. And at the end of the day, if you miss, like I just did, it'll all catch fire eventually, so who cares? All right, probably good for some wood, and we'll let that go for a bit. Thank you for the wood. As we can see, we are quite ready for it. It's like pitching onto a bonfire through a goal from 6 feet away, 10 feet away. And sometimes you hit the goal. That'll all catch and burn back. There we go. That's a good big honking piece. There we go. Okay. Well, that pile will now catch and start to do things, so we'll let it sit. A lot of hurry up and wait for this stuff.
Yeah, it is. It's just the railroad. Everything in the railroad's always.
The railroad is hurry up or hurry up and wait. There is no in between. It's burning nice and hot, but a little low, so we'll add some more. So I want to note that this video is actually shot over 3 different days. We took a couple days to fire up both of the engines we had for the Colorado Crossings event. Wanted to make sure that everything got up to steam nice and easy, nice and slow for the sake of the boiler, and that we'd have time to fix any problems that may have arisen once things got steamed up, because you're always not 100% sure if something's going to decide to leak or not within the heating and expanding process. So we wanted to make sure that everything was ready to go. And so this video is actually cut as if it was one long fire up session, despite it coming from 3 different sessions. So the process is the same either way. All you're really missing from what actually happened was watching me shake the fire and then build a wood fire again each morning. And we'll probably look into that in a future video as well. If you'd like to see kind of the day in the life of an operating day for someone like me, and you want to see the 4 a.m. wake up and the 5 a.m. fire up and how that transitions to the day, let me know. That'd be a fun video to put together, and I've got a lot of that shot. Well, it's been a couple minutes. Let's check the fire and see what's going on. We're making enough smoke that we got the exhaust fan on, so it's loud as hell. Oh yeah, burning nice and hot. A little slow, but that's all right. Toss a couple freshies on there. And we're just heating up for now, so it doesn't matter if we don't have fire all the way across the box. We've got it. Good big pile in the center. And that takes a hell of a lot more than the 10 in the Class 70. Lift the couple in. She's happy. So I'm joined in the cab of the 491 by frequent guest of the channel, Brett.
Hello.
But this time in person, and we're not playing train games.
Yeah, well, we are playing train games.
Well, we were playing train, yeah. But
Big,
not
real train games.
the big scary ones. So what I'm doing right now is I'm raking that fire pile forward so that I can have my bonfire kind of in the center of the firebox so it stops smoking us out a little bit. And like pretty much everything that you do railroading wise, there's about a million different ways to do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I figured we'd see what Brett's thoughts are on firing up so you don't just hear from me.
Yeah, well, I don't know what you've talked about, but I know we certainly do it differently. I do it really differently from, say, Dust or Jeff, you know, the other people that are in the shop in charge of things.
Yeah.
Dust really likes putting it on coal as quick as possible. Waste
And
as little firewood as you can.
Well, which is understandable, but if you can see the haze, I can't see the band through the haze, let alone myself. So.
Yeah, it's a
little smoky right now.
here.
Yeah. That's why I like pushing the pile forward, is that hopefully it drafts out the front instead of out the back.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
I tend to do a little bit of what you do. You know, you build the bonfire in the back, or in the middle back. I don't really care as much where it is because I don't really push the bonfire. I kind of knock it over. Just, you know, a little here, 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 and then rebuild it.
Makes sense.
And that seems to do all right with spreading it out, but like you say, there's a million ways to skin the cat.
Yes.
The big one is don't asphyxiate yourself, and you try to get on coal as quick-ish as possible.
Yeah, but we're still not even on steam yet. So it's kind of as soon as you get coal in there, you need a lot more ignition temperature.
Yeah, which means air.
Which means forced air.
Yeah.
Right?
Which we could put it on a little bit of draft if you would like, but
nah, I don't think we'll need it. We're not in any rush today. We still got a couple days before we're really running, so.
That's true. I don't know if you've talked to any on the channel about how long it takes to steam up an engine of this size, but it is Thursday currently.
It is Thursday.
We had a fire in it yesterday,
yeah.
And the engine is not needed for service until Saturday.
Indeed.
So we are taking a little longer than is probably necessary, but you know.
Well, it's the whole game of balancing thermal stress.
Yep. Where
you've got this much steel that has to expand, and it's got so far to move.
Absolutely.
You want to take it nice and easy. I mean, we've heard stories of people firing these things up in an hour from cold.
Yeah, you can. That's called cold firing an engine for those playing at home.
That's actually a thing.
There have been stories from way, way back in the days of, you know, the 80s and 90s in Durango. These crews have largely left, but in an absolute emergency, you can get a K-class from cold to operating in like 4 hours if you really, really railed on it. And we here take closer to probably 12 in total.
Yeah, pretty much 12. Yeah. But I mean, if you force air, you get the fire going crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, you can get an inferno in there, and I mean, you boil water quick, right? That's setting your stove on high, but
you're whipping the boiler.
There's a lot of mass here, and particularly the K37, mostly rigid stay bolts, which means that there's no ability to flex. Talked about it a little bit in the 101 class on how steam locomotives work. 491's almost all rigid stays, so if you were to crank this thing up, you'd be breaking stay bolts, you'd be potentially wasting the sheets, causing a lot of excess wear. So back in the day, they'd do this all the time because they could put new boilers on stuff.
Right.
But we don't have that luxury in the museum.
No, absolutely not.
So we try and take it nice and easy and gentle. And we could have fired up starting today for Saturday, but
yeah, but. We've also got a second engine kind of shot over there that we have to worry about, so. Oh, you got that one?
Yeah, now there are two of them.
Two choo-choos, and then a third choo-choo that has its tubes cut off.
Yeah, so we're, and Grandma. But yeah, we're firing up two engines here, and we're just tasked with this one, so.
Yep. We sit in the seat and we boil water.
Sit in the seat and boil water, indeed. But yeah, we've got a nice bonfire in the center here. I'm just gonna keep making the pile bigger, and then spread it out a little bit, and we'll start peppering in a little bit of coal, just the cutest little pieces, because you start getting a lot of coal, it takes a lot to ignite, you start getting lots of smoke, and you can choke out your fire like that. So we'd rather not do that.
Then you have to throw liquid encouragement on the fire and bad things happen.
Yeah, you'd like to avoid the liquid encouragement if you could, but sometimes it has to happen.
Yep.
So that's why we have a whole tank of accelerant. It's not for fires, but you can use it for it.
It burns pretty well.
It does burn good. And I think I'm gonna let the fire pile burn, but we're gonna have to go get another helping, I think, and load up the tender, so we'll be right back. All right, more fuel. All right. Got some big beams coming this time. Thankfully, it's a big firebox. Bricks! You can't burn those. That needs to go there. You can see that big bonfire, but still have to spread out to the sides and the front. On the back corners, can't forget about them. So. This is the fire rake. It's a lot like a big industrial version of the one that you have at home for the leaves. Well, we used a fair amount of wood, and we want to try and get to the coal a little bit, so I'm going to dig around the coal pile, find a couple small pieces that I can chuck in with the shovel, and now we'll start transitioning to coal, hopefully without making too much smoke. Alright, we've got a big pile of nice hot coal and wood, and we need to make it a little bigger, and then we're going to spread it everywhere because the wood burned down really quick after we spread it out earlier. So, more coal! Now we'll smoke out the neighbors for the next, 30 minutes or whatever, and then spread it out. So coal-fired engines are really interesting in that you get to see a bunch of different things happen with the fire itself, with how burnt out the coal is. So when we've got this big pile in the box and we spread it out, all of a sudden all this big black smoke starts rolling out despite us not really having much smoke before. And it's because you're exposing all of those new surface areas for combustion, and that's trying to ignite. And because it's not complete combustion yet, what was underneath your pile of coal, all of a sudden there's all this more surface area for reaction to happen. And so it's trying to ignite all that stuff all at once, which is why you get all that smoke despite not having put more fuel in. But then as the coal starts to burn and combust evenly, it really cleans up. And a fire that's burnt down and relaxed back quite a bit, you can easily see the whole firebox. And so I really wanted to make sure you guys could see that in this video, all the different states of I can't see anything to, oh man, I can see everything and it's vibrant, or everything and it's just kind of hanging back. Now we can see that with the coal raked out, we don't have a full box of fire and we don't have a level fire bed, but we've got a good semblance of what's going on. Now the smoke's cleared, so we gotta clear that big pile there and finish hitting up our sides here. We've got a good fire going on here. It's smoking out the back a little bit. And Brett shall help here. We can see that the coal is spread out. We got some fresh burning stuff. It's lighting the coal nice and easy. Still not level, and it won't be for a minute, but we'll work on that. But we start to have some steam, so we need to go shut the monkey tail. So I'll be right back.
You're gonna go that way?
I'm gonna go this way because I don't know if I could fit out the front door with the camera on. I guess we could try it.
You could give it a shot.
Let's try it, folks. Welcome to why K37s are more of a pain than any other locomotive. Is because this right here,
Big boiling thing.
the big boily thing, and the Johnson bar next to it, you know, things. All right. Nope.
Do I need a big shoehorn?
Yeah, pretty much. The camera does not fit on my chest through the door because I'm the size of the door. And people wonder why our collision models suck in railroads online. It's because narrow gauge is small. Yeah, and as Brett says, this is the big engine. All right. Clamber up here. This is the monkey tail. And it is steaming, which means that we have steam. So we want to start making pressure, so we gotta close it. No more steamies. And now we're gonna start making steam pressure. Well, we're gonna climb down the front edge here. Always use 3 points of contact. We're gonna come over here. This is the blower pipe. This is the air compressor exhaust. We want to make sure that our blower drain is open. We open it by going counterclockwise, lefty, loosey, right? And then we go just back a turn a little bit so that when you grab the valve, you know that it's open because it's not stuck on one seat or another. So our drain's open so we can start sending blower from the cab. And here we are. This is the blower valve. And we'll crank this open now. And we'll go check and see if we have enough steam to make that leak. And we do. Look at that. It's got the monkey tail closed. Brett has rejoined us once again. And the light is casting me like Jesus for some reason. Anyway, Brett has rejoined us. We have steam. We have enough steam to run the blower, which we were talking about opening with the drain there, and it's about halfway open right now.
There's shut.
There's shut.
You referenced this little cluster of baling wire there.
Yep.
Usually when you're running, you go between here and about
there. That's it.
But
that's with 175-ish PSI behind it, not nothing. We have some amount of pressure, but
are we off the peg?
No, we're not.
Oh.
That's the fun of steam pressure gauges, is that they don't really work until they work. So until we get about 5-10 PSI, it's going to continue to show 0. So anyways, eventually we will actually have some pressure on the gauge there, but you can see when we look in the fire that we actually do have draft going. You can see that the flames are much taller. You can see it's all throughout the box, and most of the smoke's getting sucked in, which is the whole point of the blower. And so now we'll be able to build pressure and temperature a little bit more quickly because we've got forced air, and that the steam is already hot enough that it doesn't really make too much of a difference if we run it a little faster, because the boiler's already done a significant amount of expansion. The temperature difference between, you know, no pressure but hot fire versus just absolutely bone cold is a lot less. But we still want to take our time with it, so we'll just keep a nice gentle blower going and keep it going until we start seeing the pressure come up. So one of the nice things now that we've got a little bit of blower rolling is we can actually see the fire quite a bit better. You can actually see where it's actually drafting hard and when it's not, so you know where you need to put the coal in. Let's take a look. We can see almost all the way up. You can see that there's light flames in the upper right, front right up there. And we've got lower spots and valleys in terms of coal height, midway up on that left side, and pretty close on this right side here. And so we're gonna hit all three of those spots with a couple scoops of coal now. Nailed it.
Scoop sizes yet?
I haven't. Brett on the shovel cam.
Ah!
Come on up.
You're our next contestant.
So Brett just mentioned scoop sizes. Why don't you tell the people about different shovels?
Basically, you think about it, when you have large locomotives, you want large shovel because you want to be throwing a lot of coal. They're rated, we actually discovered the other week, they're rated differently between brands.
Yeah, that's always the convenient thing, right? So they have different numbers for different sizes of shovels.
This
Bigger,
is, I think, a number 4.
Number 4?
This is a number 4, as it says right there. It's a Wyoming Red Edge. Good manufacturer of shovels. We like Wyoming Red Edge.
Big snow shovel for big choo-choo, but
Yeah.
if you use this large of a shovel on 20 or 346, the odds that you hit the door go exponentially up.
You go like this, and then it goes, and then the coal
Yeah.
goes everywhere, and the fireman swears because that's the way that works.
That's what happens. Yeah, the actual fire doors on those engines is, you know, about not quite 3/4 the size, right around there. So it's a whole thing.
Found another size of shovel.
Here we go.
So this one, the handle's broken, so
Yes, you can't use this shovel.
be very careful with that. But there is a number. That's a number 2.
A number 2.
As compared to the number 4.
Yeah, so considerably smaller. This is actually really small, but this is probably what you'd use on 20 and 346.
Yep.
Something about this size.
And you also get the aspect ratio changes a little bit. They're about the same length, but obviously much wider.
Yeah,
So-
because you need the depth and then the scooped rear to actually secure the coal and fling it. It's a common prank told to me by a good friend of ours from Pennsylvania.
Oh, I see.
He said that when he would train firemen, they'd tell him to put all the coal at the front edge of the scoop, and then you'd get to watch them throw the coal all over the cab because it just would not go anywhere, because you need to have it propelled from the rear to have the weight of the shovel behind it to fling it. So there's actually a fair bit of science that goes into these, which is really cool.
I never had really considered it, but you have to keep the length the same as well, because then you can go between different scoops, and although the mass of the shovel changes, your technique for actually pling when you're once inside the door doesn't change. Stays
Yeah,
consistent.
because you're still going to aim the same way, and the coal will still take the same vector, whereas if it's shorter, it would scatter more.
Right.
Like slice or whatever in golf. I don't know the terms. I'm not a
wedge,
sports
I think.
person.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyways, take this derelict shovel
tiny
back.
little shovel away.
So yeah, shovels, they're important. Check it out. off the peg. Barely, got about 10 PSI, but hey, 10's more than 0. Steam's happening. So we call this the shovel cam, and I was so impressed. I was floored with the quality of the GoPro footage and the stabilization and how it turned out. But I had the idea, okay, well maybe we'll try and clamp a camera to the shovel and see what it does. We'll have shovel cam. But it turned out so fantastically. I'm so excited by it. The slow-mo shots, you watch the coal fly, and you can really see that this is a precise thing that you have to do. You have to aim where you're shooting in that firebox with your coal. And the shovel cam confirms, A, that I was able to hit what I wanted to hit, but also B, that the groupings are really, really tight. As the coal burns, the reaction kind of changes in the firebox depending on the oxygen availability. And right now what we got is some pretty well burnt down coal that's still providing a lot of heat, which is building our steam pressure here. We're sitting at about 35 PSI, but we can get a really good look inside the firebox finally because the smoke has died down enough that we're completely combusting the coal rather than just sitting there trying to ignite it. So let's take a look. So now we can see pretty much the whole firebox. You can see the front corners. You can see the big giant mound in the center that we never raked out, but it'll burn down because we're just firing up and the whole thing's gonna shake down. But you can see we got some spots to the left, some spots to the right that we kind of need to hit with some fresh stuff because we can see the whole fire now. And if you're not able to pattern fire, it's really important that you can actually read and see the fire. So you can see that valley over there. You can see a little bit of thin spot all the way up at the front right there, and then tight here where it's kind of gray and ashy on top of the coal. We want to hit those spots there, liven them back up, and we'll keep building steam pressure. Okay, about 80 PSI now, really getting there. And the fire is really cleaned out. The big mound that we had in the centers kind of relaxed back. It's a little thick across the front, but it'll stay thick until we can actually work the locomotive. And it looks like the front right, you can see there's flame all the way up there, flame right there, but that front right corner doesn't have much. And that's the hardest place in the firebox to hit, so we're gonna give it a shot here. So you wouldn't think so, but handedness actually plays a factor in firing a locomotive like this. A right-handed fireman likes to balance off of this post. You come over here and you just put your back up against it, and that's how you brace yourself. And so it's really easy to make any moves towards you, towards the left side of the firebox, but it can be really hard to get that reverse arc getting to particularly the front right corner. So let's see how this goes. I'm a little out of practice with this big engine. It's been a couple years since I fired it, but we'll see if I can nail it. You gotta remember 491's firebox is about the size of a pool table. 5.5 by 9.5 feet, and that's just the grate surface. That's not including any slopes or any other stuff in there, or the grate bearers. For all intents and purposes, your front corner is about 3 feet off center and about 11 feet up ahead of you. And so hitting those front corners, I mean, you gotta be really precise with that. You've got all of that area to hit, and you're doing it with something basically the size of a small snow shovel. That's one of the things that media of every variety, video games every variety, get completely wrong and miss out on this really cool and fun nuance where you have to be really good with the scoop. You gotta know where you're gonna go, and you gotta be able to hit there accurately and quickly, and be able to read it quickly too. You don't just throw coal into the box and that's that. So the front right corner shot's just about the hardest shot to hit. Watch as the shovel comes back up and around. There's no pause to the motion. You get your coal, you bring it back up, and you kind of do a little bit of a loop almost with the head of the shovel so you can build some speed so that you're ready to go, and you're also ready for the arc of reversing back into that front right corner. And you can watch as I almost get out of the way with my chest as the shovel comes flying by, and you can see the coal fly off into the front right corner. And you watch the coal fly there, and then you get a responding huge burst of fire right there. I could not believe how cool some of this footage turned out. Alright, so we got almost 100 on the gauge. When we start getting into the 120, 150 range, we're going to start firing up the air compressor. But in order to do that, we need to start sending it oil. And in order to send it oil, we need to make sure the hydrostatic lubricator is nice and warmed up. So we're going to come up here. This is the hydrostatic lubricator on 491. Make sure the condenser valve's shut. Make sure the feeds are shut. Now we'll come over to the turret starting, and now we can play. Which one is it? Is it this one, this one, this one, or this one? Or the only tagged one? Air pump, right? It's this guy here. This is the hydrostatic. So we'll start the steam to the hydrostatic. And we can hear our blower change because we're evacuating the turret as we fill that line. And so now we'll start preheating our lubricator and our oil. And so when the time comes to start the pump, we'll open the condenser, we'll open the feed, start sending oil out that pipe right there that runs into the steam delivery line to the air compressor. So that'll be in a minute, but it's good to get the oil preheating nice and early. So almost at 100 PSI. Almost time. All right, we got 125 pounds on the gauge. We're gonna start sending some oil to the compressor. So open up the condenser valve, and we'll just get the feed kind of opened up, and it'll just start sending oil at whatever rate it needs to send it at. And we'll find it back down once we get the pump going. It's most important to get all that started. And then we'll start sending steam to the air compressor over here. It's got an individual throttle down at the compressor itself, which makes it really easy to start from the ground while you're watching the pump to see what the drains do. So we'll get that open, back it off a quarter, and we'll go start the thing. Chocolate milk. So 491's air compressor is what we call a cross compound air compressor, and that basically means that it uses the steam twice. So the little cylinder on top is the high pressure steam that exhausts to the low pressure bigger cylinder also on top to the left, and then the steam vents out. And on bottom is where the air is getting compressed and ultimately ends up going to the reservoirs. Now starting most air compressors is pretty similar. You gotta make sure all the drains are open and slowly admit steam in. And then as the drains kind of clean up, you close the drains off and start to increase the speed. The really important thing with air compressors though is you wanna make sure that you have the cushion of the air behind it before you get the pump running fast. The air pressure backfeeding from the main reservoir is actually what cushions the bottom piston. If you run too much steam pressure too quickly, you can actually ram the piston head of the air compressor into the cylinder head on the air end. And you can hear it if you start to advance the throttle of the air compressor too quickly. You can actually hear that sound start to happen. It's not a terribly pleasant sound, so you definitely learn, okay, no, we let it run longer than that if you do that. So once you've got air pressure built up, you can do a quick air test in the shop, make sure that the locomotive's happy, sign off on your paperwork, and that everything's ready to go.
It's that time.
Take the locomotive out, and then the last couple steps are putting more coal in the tender if you need it, and cleaning out the ashpan. And boy howdy, does that suck on the K37. For those of you that watch the channel that deal with other coal burning locomotives, I don't have enough experience with enough other coal burning engines to confidently say that the K37 has the worst ashpan, but it's gotta be pretty high on the list. Based on other engines I've seen, you've got so much more room to work. There's not a trailing truck necessarily smacked in the middle of it. But in the case of the K37, you've got giant boiler, giant frame, big trailing truck right in the smack center, and you've got just a narrow slit to get the hose and wand in to actually get the ashes dumped out. So you have to sit there, you shut the air compressor off first thing, you put on a mask for yourself, because you don't want the air compressor or yourself to be breathing in any of this mess. You then get the air wand and you try and shove that ash out using air pressure down through the hopper. You can see that the lever underneath the cab down by the frame is actually open, and that's actually what dumps the ash pan, but you'll get a lot of stuff stuck in between the grate linkage and stuck in the narrow shelves that doesn't want to go, and that's going to inhibit your draft later. And yes, you can draft the fire pretty hard, but you're not going to draft hard enough through the fire bed, through the grates, to then move stuff around in the ash pan. So you really need to do a good job of blowing out the pan, and it just sucks on the K37s. That's their one downfall as a locomotive class, if you ask me. I love the engines every way, but yeah, that ash pan is that's not very fun. If you look at a K36, it's got so much more space.
Man, and I just cleaned the damn thing off. Blow out the ash pan one time and it's a mess.
So I hope you guys enjoyed this look at how you fire up a steam locomotive from cold. It's a long process that you have to do to make sure that you don't hurt the boiler, and we can help maintain and preserve these locomotives for generations to come. So it's definitely a labor of love, and I'm glad that I got to share it with you guys. So I hope you had fun watching this video. If you liked the video, make sure you click the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Feel free to click the little bell if you want to know when I'm uploading stuff, and if you want to join the lovely crew of the ES&D Brakeman and join the channel as a channel member, get some sweet perks, particularly for live stream stuff, a little bit more behind the scenes things, and a little bit more communication with me. If that sounds good, you can click the little join button or click the link in the description. We just spent all this time watching the locomotive get fired up. We at least got to watch it run by at least once. Thanks for watching, everyone.